Give it up for Dr. Madhava Setty, everybody, coming to the stage. Big round of applause, sir.
So, a young woman is walking down the street in the evening, and she approaches a man scurrying around in the bushes under a street lamp, and stops and says, "What are you doing? Can I help you?" And the man looks up at her and says, "Yes, I've lost my keys. It's getting dark, and I need to get home to my wife." So she stops and gets down on all fours and begins to help. As time goes by, other passers-by stop and also help. It's getting dark. And finally the woman says, "You know, we've covered every inch of this space under the street light. Are you sure you dropped the keys here?" And he says, "Well, no, I'm pretty sure I dropped them across the street under those trees." And everybody stops and says, "What the hell are we doing looking for the keys under the light?" And he says, "You can't see anything over there." That's kind of where we are right now, isn't it? That's where we are. It's very easy to look for the answers where the light shines. It takes a certain amount of courage to venture out into the shadows to find the keys. But look around you. We are not alone in the dark. Stand up, Massachusetts. Stand up. What are we standing against? Mask mandates? I am. Are we standing against the inoculation of our children? Are we standing against the restrictions placed on the unvaccinated? Yes to all of the above. Thank you. Thank you. But what are we standing for? Yes. If anyone didn't hear that, we're standing for freedom. We are standing for the freedom to choose. Not just our freedom, but the freedom of those who stand against us. This is an age-old conflict. Both sides have formidable weapons in their arsenal. Our authorities have enormous wealth, and they wield the power of the media to invoke fear, which is their greatest ally. There are many of us, but we are outnumbered. We do not have their resources. However, we possess something that they do not have. We possess the truth. Yes. I am not talking about the truth about the origins of this SARS-CoV-2. I'm not talking about the truth behind the futility of mask wearing. Here, I'm talking about the truth of our essence. The truth of who we are. We are free. We were created that way. No matter how unjust or ridiculous the imposition or mandates are, we always have the freedom to choose how we respond. That is the freedom I'm talking about. This is the truth. And as long as we remember this, we will always be free. We're free to choose how we respond. How many of you here believe that we have not been told the truth around this pandemic? I don't either. How should we respond to the distortion and half-truths that are coming from the media and our brothers and sisters who accept what they say without question? Should we denigrate them? Should we use labels like sheep and asleep to make our point? To answer this question, we must put our struggle into a greater context. The context of our own history as a species. Today, We mourn the innocent lives that were lost 20 years ago. We also remember the hundreds of thousands of lives that were lost and were permanently devastated by decades of war that followed. Do you believe that we were told the truth about 9/11?
No.
Whoa. You guys really are nuts. I don't either. I don't. Let me offer these undisputed facts from that day. 2 planes hit the Twin Towers, and when the smoke cleared, there was almost nothing left. There was not a pile of HVAC equipment and pipes. Yet, from the East River to the Hudson, Lower Manhattan was covered with a blanket 3 inches thick of pulverized concrete. This fact is undisputed. Those buildings did not fall down, they disintegrated. This fact is undisputed. 118 firefighters went on public record saying that they felt, saw, and heard explosions in the Twin Towers prior to their collapse. Their stories were corroborated by dozens of mainstream media sources that morning. Yet, this is never spoken about again, and their testimony remains ignored. 2,749 human beings perished in the collapse of the Twin Towers, and some of them were first responders who rushed towards the building. There are heroes, but they knew that no matter how bad the fire, no matter the fact that it was hit by a plane, steel structures will not collapse from fires. They don't do that. They perished as well. The buildings fell anyway, and human remains were found greater than 1/5 of a mile away from ground zero. And by human remains, I'm not talking about dismembered arms and legs, I'm talking about bone fragments, less than 1 centimeter long. This is not what we expect from a building that's collapsing. Steel components weighing more than 4 tons were ripped from the building and thrown 600 feet away, lodging themselves in other buildings. 600 feet, that is the length of 2 football fields. This fact is undisputed. Finally, a 3rd building in Manhattan fell in a matter of seconds on 9/11. Does everyone know what that building is?
Yeah.
Wow, you guys don't read the news. Good for you. Building 7 was huge. It was 47 stories tall. It was 400 feet across. In terms of the square foot floor area of Building 7, it was about the size of a building here in Boston that we call the John Hancock Tower. This was not a small building, this was massive, and it went down in a matter of seconds. It was not mentioned in the 9/11 Commission report, and it was not hit by a plane. These facts are undisputed. Because of these events, surveillance of communication between citizens was deemed necessary as spelled out in the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act should be in the Oxford English Dictionary under the word irony. That is the best example of what the Patriot Act represents. Patriots created this country, which was an experiment in freedom in a world that had been dominated by ruling classes for millennia. The term patriot was diabolically co-opted to lend legitimacy to enforcing restrictions on freedom itself. It would be hilarious for its sheer absurdity if it wasn't so tragic. Now, during the pandemic, more than half the country accepts censorship, deplatforming, and shadow banning to keep us safe. Who decides who should be censored? Our authorities? The First Amendment was written specifically to protect those who speak out against authority. Now we are letting our authorities decide who gets to speak and who does not. Our founding fathers are rolling in their graves. The remedy to the threat in 9/11 were costly wars. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about trauma, both physical and psychological, that were born by our brave soldiers who fought wars that did not need to be fought. These are the casualties of such lies. We're not dismissing their ultimate sacrifice. We're honoring them by trying to get to the bottom of things. If we cannot openly challenge what we're being told, even if we're wrong, they will have died in vain. Now, hundreds of millions of people in this country have lined up for another remedy, packaged as a vaccine using technology never before deployed on human beings. This remedy has also taken the lives of tens of thousands. And once again, there are hundreds of thousands of people who have survived but are suffering from adverse events. These are the casualties of the remedy that we're being forced to swallow today. If you believe I'm being unpatriotic by challenging the, quote, official narrative of 9/11, I ask you to consider this. This is exactly the way we are being regarded by the general public when we express our position around the pandemic. If you think that screaming at the other side will ever deliver us to freedom quickly, I disagree with you. This is not us against authority. This is us against ourselves. And I beseech you to consider our tone. We are trying to negotiate with more than half of our population that are afraid. They're afraid of us, what we believe and what we represent. They're afraid of our unmasked faces. They're afraid of our vaccination status. They're being taught that we represent a threat to their very existence, a threat as pernicious as a virus. That's what they're being told. I want to tell you a personal story. Not so long after 9/11, I was a young anesthesiologist living in a small town in upstate New York. And one morning, I get a knock on the door. It's our county sheriff. And he says, "May I come in and look around?" He did not have a warrant, but I had nothing to hide, except for the squalor that only a recent divorcee could tolerate. And he entered my apartment. He started looking around. He, saw the unfolded laundry and stacks of takeout that remained, half-eaten. And finally, I said, "Look, what are you looking for, officer? What's going on?" And he looked at me and he says, "I have a report here that you have a book about making bombs." And I looked at him stunned. And then I remembered that I did have a book with the word bomb in it. It was called The Making of the Atomic Bomb by Richard Rhodes, a New York Times bestseller that documented the breakthroughs in theoretical physics prior to the Manhattan Project. And I said, "Is this the book you're looking for?" And he picked it up, leafed through it, and said, "Yep, that's it. I'm very sorry, doctor. I'll be on my way now." And I said, whoa, wait a minute. How on earth did you know that I owned this book? And he looked at me and he said, "I can't tell you that, sir." I said, "Come on, you gotta tell me what's going on here." And as he left, he said, "I'll tell you this. Did you have your air conditioning service recently?" I did. I called my superintendent 2 days ago because my air conditioning stopped working. He knew me by face, not by name, just by face. And to this day, I still don't know whether it was the book or the color of skin on my face and the length of my beard that prompted it to call the authorities. I've told this story a bunch of times in the subsequent years, and each time it's met with gasps. It's met with a feeling of disbelief. How could this possibly happen in this country? It doesn't seem so incredible now, does it? In a fascinating repeat of history, once again, it is our faces that are feared. 20 years ago, it was brown skin and long, dark beards, and today, it is the conspicuous absence of a mask that draws suspicion. Suspicion and fear are extremely dangerous to a free people. I'm going to read something to you. This is from the Department of Homeland Security, an announcement that was made 5 weeks ago. Quote, "Through the remainder of 2021, racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists and anti-government, anti-authority violent extremists will remain a national threat priority for the United States. These extremists may seek to exploit the emergence of COVID-19 variants by viewing the potential reestablishment of public health restrictions across the United States as a rationale to conduct attacks. Nation-state adversaries have increased efforts to sow discord. For example, Russian, Chinese, and Iranian government-linked media outlets have repeatedly amplified conspiracy theories concerning the origins of COVID-19 and the effectiveness of vaccines." This is from the Department of Homeland Security in this country. Are we operatives of adversaries of the United States?
No.
I'm not. Are we violent extremists?
No.
That's not how our authorities view us. Our society is now a tinderbox waiting for the right spark. So please take heed before getting too fired up. But I'm not discouraged. Exactly 7 years after 9/11, I and my wife were graced by a miracle. The birth of our son. He turned 13 today. He is the reason why I'm standing here speaking to you. Miracles are happening all around us, right here and right now. Last year, I wrote a book. But before I was an author, I was a physician, and I will always be a practitioner of the healing art. But before I was a physician, I was an engineer, and no one can ever take that from me. Before I was an engineer, I was a student, and I'm still a student today because there's always something to learn. And before I was a student, I was a child, and you can ask my wife, I have not outgrown that either. But before I was a child, I was free. That is how I was created. Just like you, and you, just like my son. The patriots who dug their heels in and stood their ground are dead. But there are other patriots who live today. Look around you. They're here next to you, sitting at your table. Amen. I ask you, please, to be an author and express your message kindly and clearly with the intent to explain and not dictate. Be a physician and heal with a warm touch and a hug and a smile. Be an engineer and create something worthwhile. Be a student and ask questions. Be a child and play. Let us not be fooled by the idea that freedom can or will be granted to us by an authority that passes laws. Freedom is a state of mind that we always have access to. True patriots know this. Freedom cannot be taken from us. It is only something that we surrender.